What other challenges and opportunities do you see for the Africa region?
The number of challenges, I think that we've spoken about some of them. We've spoken about the shortage of faculty. Perhaps I should speak about the opportunities first of all, okay?
Great.
So when we talk about the African region, obviously the opportunities are boundless in several sectors. Infrastructure, telecommunications, financial services, the several high growth sectors there, so the opportunities are tremendous. For management educators, the opportunities are also tremendous. We spoke about, you gave the statistics a few moments ago about the number of college-age students that are going to materialize or crystallize over the next 10 to 20 years. Tremendous opportunity for us to develop these managers as well. So the opportunities for the management education sector, there are opportunities for companies across Africa, across these high growth areas. The critical challenges have to do with finding qualified faculty when we talk to management education. Where do we get them from? It's not so easy to hire from other parts of the world because obviously most of Africa was still, or all of Africa is still in developing stage, which means that there are challenges with infrastructure, there are challenges in terms of institutions, there are challenges in healthcare, things that make life easy for people to live, okay? We also face perhaps insufficient funding across several countries for tertiary education, which means that for an academic, one of the things that keep him going, makes him thrive, is the opportunity to do research and for it to be funded. If there's a shortfall in funding to tertiary education, then there's a shortfall to research. Therefore, he may not be able to undertake the sort of research projects that he's interested in. Earlier on, I alluded to the ways by which we need to deliver learning now if we're going to make a real impact on the economic growth of Africa. A lot of those ways involve technology. We'll still have constraints in terms of the accessibility, affordability, and availability of technology, to read this as well. So these are some of the challenges there. But there are tremendous opportunities, I think, for business schools, not only within the region, but from outside the region as well. And I think that it's attractive from both sides.
Yeah. So you mentioned some opportunities in management in general and in specific industries. What are the opportunities in teaching entrepreneurship?
Fantastic. I mean, if we look at it there, first of all, you must be aware about the unemployment rates. Okay, if you look at the unemployment rates, I think that's as provided by various bodies. It doesn't convey perhaps the gravity of it because if you look across Africa, so maybe it's 12%, and then globally it's 13%. So you think, okay, it's not bad. But then I always say it's relative. It's a game of numbers. If you look at the population, and of course it differs, as averages do, it differs from country to country. Therefore, governments that are serious or societies that are serious about doing something to address unemployment and to create more jobs have to focus on entrepreneurship. As business schools, perhaps in Africa, this is not something that we all started off doing. But I think as the realization grew for what is the role of a business school in the society, with that realization came the conclusion that we needed to do something about entrepreneurship. So there are huge opportunities there. The city that I live in, Lagos, Nigeria, home to 18 million people, has the highest number of businesses created across Africa, registered across Africa each day, hosts 65% of private sector businesses, commercial, nerve center. 50 or more percent of these are small businesses. Small businesses, when we look at the statistics, 1 in 5 fail within 3 years of being set up. And if we look at what are the constraints to the survival of those businesses, the critical part is the skills. So whereas, as happens with every budding entrepreneur, you have the idea, but you have the skills to be able to grow the businesses and create jobs and sustain it there. So there is a huge opportunity for business schools to develop the skills of entrepreneurs, to provide networks that support them, and for skill building, not only for them but also for these small businesses as well, because it's so critical to overall development, social and economic development.
So let's turn back perhaps to AACSB. We mentioned earlier that we have, I believe, 19 member schools and 3 accredited so far, and a number are in the process. How has the AACSB accreditation process presented both a challenge and an opportunity to schools in emerging markets?
The opportunity that it presents is that, the standards, if we look at them overall, are expected to improve quality across several things there. The opportunity that it presents to schools who would become members or perhaps seek to be accredited by them is that you really have the opportunity to improve quality across several things. To understand your mission and to be true to your mission across everything that you do. That's the way that I would put it there. A tremendous help, because the areas that we've spoken about, faculty development, research, being part of an AACSB process, for instance, means that you have to be cognizant of what you need to do in order to actualize your mission there across several dimensions there. So it gives an opportunity for business schools to not only aspire, but to actually improve their quality. The challenge is, I think that the critical challenge that, obviously, if schools can improve their quality, it has implications for several other things. Not only in terms of the potential applicants that they will attract, but also it puts them in a position to be able to collaborate with other schools, other global schools, in order to, we've spoken about the shortfall, we're not going to, the 100 business schools, we're not going to be able to develop all of African managers. We need to do things with other schools there. But then other schools will do things with you if you're perceived to be of high quality. Therefore, this presents the opportunity for us to improve our quality and make ourselves attractive, not only to potential applicants, but also to other schools. One of the biggest challenges that I think that we'll face is that when we talk about accreditation is the cost for schools in emerging markets. If you look at the funding model and the business models there, majority of the schools are supported by the government and therefore receive a grant or subvention from the government, do not have the leeway to increase their fees as they choose or to price appropriately. I believe that tertiary education in my country is grossly underpriced, but then individual schools do not have the leeway to price appropriately. Therefore, there are constraints to the revenues that they have. There are also constraints when they exist within the university setup to how much of their money they can keep and spend. The whole process of accreditation involves serious money. If we put it in the context of those schools there, that may detract from the desire to be able to go there. The second, which is less of a challenge now, was perhaps the perception that, these standards, these things that we're trying to do, are they applicable in all contexts? But I think that they are, because it's not so rigid as to constrain you in the things that you do. But just the understanding of what is AACSB about, in my view, is lacking across most of the continent, so more has to be done in that regard, and for the benefits to be shown. As somebody who's been involved and been in the process of accreditation for a while, I can point to the tangible benefits that being in the process have brought to us there. But then, how many schools would know about this and want to do it? Mm-hmm.
Sounds like we need to get the word out better to schools in Africa.
Perfect.
Now, you mentioned earlier that when you first started at Lagos Business School, you were training folks for the local environment, and then you saw companies that were moving across the continent. And then also today, there's many multinational companies operating in the region. How can business schools in emerging markets do a better job of preparing graduates to meet the needs of all of these businesses?
The first thing is that we have to understand what the needs of businesses are. Okay, so it comes down to curriculum. What are we offering? What are the needs of businesses? What is the interaction that we have with industry in order to understand what their needs are? And then how equipped are we to be able to address those needs? So if, for instance, a school, in a particular school, the professors have no contact at all with industry, little connections with industry, either through consultant or belonging to different fora as well there. It makes it more difficult for you to be cognizant of what it is.
Right.
And if there's no structured process in place for you to become aware of this there, then your curriculum is irrelevant. So one of the things that business schools could do, first of all, is to ensure the relevance. Secondly, is that we have to look at the context. What are we educating the students on, and what are we educating them for? Traditionally, across emerging markets and in Africa, we educate more in terms of content that is specific to various functions of management, less on other things as values that are essential for one to be able to thrive. Which is why at Lagos Business School, for instance, we've always laid a very strong emphasis on things like business ethics, on individual social responsibility, not only through what we teach in class and the way we teach those things, but also in the projects that they're involved in. There is a huge need on the continent for us to develop socially as well as economically. How are you preparing your students to be able to address not only the economic needs but also the social needs there? What sort of enterprises are they creating? So business schools can play those as well. When we talk about skills, earlier on I referred to the fact that now, increasingly, we're seeing greater stability in terms of policies. But in some countries in Africa, there's still volatility in terms of the stability of policies. If you're a manager functioning in any of those countries and you're not sure whether or not the policies in place when you came in that affect your business are going to remain the next day, what skills do you need?
Right.
You need adaptability, you need problem solving, you need creativity. How are those things coming through there?
Right.
So I think that there's a lot that goes through the entire activities and the entire learning experience that business schools could do in order to position them to be able to address these needs of industry.
Great. So in addition to the functional education, that agility to respond to the changing environment. How about international students from outside Africa? Are you seeing any trends there in terms of more students coming to study in Africa and learn about Africa?
I wouldn't say they're coming to study full time.
Okay.
So they're making visits.
Okay.
Okay, so what I see are learning visits to schools in Africa. A few exchange students. So across Kenya, across South Africa, Southern and Eastern Africa are very attractive because in addition to the learning experience cuts across what you do in the classroom, okay?
Right.
So there are many more attractive things that could be done. But yes, I've seen an increasing interest there. Also because of this whole thing about what's going on there. Nobody knows anything about what's going on there.
Yeah.
What's fueling this growth? What are the things that businesses are doing there? How do they survive in the face of, or in the light of changes and things like that there? But also in terms of coming to do things on the social front as well. So the various projects that there's, so it's experiential learning, it's learning from the classroom as well, but it's also involvement in social projects that actually have a transformational effect on society. And we would agree that there's a greater need for such projects that impact society more in the developing world than will be there. So increasingly, that is starting to happen. We also find an increasing interest in students coming to do internships with organizations there, which is beneficial in several ways, not only to the organizations, but also to the students as well, because it deepens the knowledge of actually doing business and functioning in an organization in any part of Africa. In a few instances, there's one creative program at least that I can think of in which for such internships, the students from schools in other places that come to Africa are paired with their counterparts. So they actually work on projects together and intern in organizations together. So there's a lot of learning that occurs in those processes as well.